United Athletics Flight 069, taking you from the rolling green-covered hills of Richmond, Kentucky, to the craggier climbs of Cedar City, Utah, and all the football you can handle in between. We're going around the UAC. Please enjoy today's in-flight entertainment, the Rev himself, Dustin Hilton.
I need to do
something.
All right. All right, guys, welcome to Around the UAC. You guys know me. I'm the Rev. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. I've spent my whole day defending my top 25 poll, which to say that it's week one, guys, calm down. If your team got left out, it's okay. Joining me, though, very special guest, we got Omar Bora. You might know him as the Burger Pauper. He's an FCS stats voter, all-around knowledgeable guy. I wanted him to come on here to talk some UAC football, as well as handle any sort of live questions that you guys have. He claimed he hasn't done enough research for this. I think he'll be fine because I do zero research for this. So, Omar, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell the folks about yourself?
Well, first off, it's an honor, Dustin. Thank you so much for having me. And I mean, I'm just glad that someone reads it. Hearing you use my research, I'm glad that someone actually reads some of the stuff I shout into the void. So shout out for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be on. I kind of stumbled upon being an FCS voter. I guess I wrote so much about quirky topics they thought I knew about what happens on the field. So they made me a voter. It's been great just learning more about these schools. And I mean, I guess a little bit of background to FCS. I grew up 10 minutes away from Holy Cross. So the spring season of 2021 kind of rekindled my love for Holy Cross. It was like the only football really on was FCS football. So, I was there for that majestic 3-1 run by the Crusaders to the playoffs until it ended tragically against our mortal foils, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. But just glad to be on, and I hope to learn more about the UAC. I mean, I love the intro, by the way. Like I almost bursted out laughing with how creative it was. So I love it.
It's absurd. Shout out to Keith Brake for the audio. I'm going to shout him out every week. So let's see what we got. Some comments real quick. Again, there we got gentlemen here watching and listening from Albany, Georgia. Thanks for watching and listening. Oh, Brandon Haddock, I owe you an apology, but we'll get there in a second. He says Roar Lions. And then there's Brendan saying, I got a partner. Yes, Brendan, I have one. I was going to bring you on this week, but we've already got enough shenanigans planned for this weekend whenever I go to Brookings, South Dakota. So let's go through the week one last week. Some really great games, some surprises that happened as well. Let's see. Abilene Christian got the first win in United Athletic Conference history, and I mean that by being under the new name, not the Wax Sun or whatever you want to call it. 31-11 expected win over Northern Colorado. That's not a shock. Northern Colorado sucks. Southern Utah, boy, Delaney Fitzgerald follows the show, follows me on Twitter. I said that I thought they would hang in with Arizona State. Granted, that game had a weather delay, kind of took them out of it. But, 24-21 loss to Arizona State, not bad for the Thunderbirds on Thursday. We get Saturday's action. Eastern Kentucky decided not to show up against Cincy. Now, I know Cincy's P5, but, guys, that game was just a blowout, 66-13, Cincinnati. Although I normally don't punish FCS or FBS losses at all, like when I do rankings and stuff, but show up, guys.
You're a better man than me, actually, for a couple schools.
I mean, I don't know. Incarnate Word might deserve to be punished for losing to UTEP. I could see. Let's see. We got Southern Illinois just absolutely boat raced Austin P 49-23. That score is that game wasn't even as close as that score was. Nick Baker went ham against Austin P. So UCA kept it close in Stillwater, 27-13, lost to Oklahoma State. My boys, the CNF Austin Lumberjacks, scored the most points by an FCS school against an FBS opponent. Lost 48-30 to Troy, but let's be honest here. Had Troy not melted down in the second quarter, that game would not be as close as it was. Let's just be honest. And let's see. Northern Alabama defeats Chattanooga 41-27. I'm going to come back and touch on that here in a second. Montana State golded out 63-20 over Utah Tech. They did not lose focus on that game, focusing on what's coming this week. And Tarleton beats McNeese 52-34, which proves once again the Kyler Neal that the Southland sucks compared to the United Athletic Conference. Just remember that, Kyler. I'd like for you to own that. We see too much HU in your background.
That's just a souvenir from Harvard Howard last year. I mean, I really there's no good way to explain that. I'm rooting for Morgan State this year, but yeah, I mean, it's no good way to explain that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about North Alabama, not Northern. Although Northern flows better, honestly, Brandon. But North Alabama, last week in the game against Mercer, I said that UNA was just not as good still. That Mercer may have had some issues that they needed to shake off, and I know there are folks who are wanting to come around and say that UNA is now a powerhouse or they're a team to be reckoned with. I still don't know if I'm sold on that, but you guys did beat Chatty, which is a good win for you guys. It's a great win. I'm happy for you. But to be fair, and I'm just being 100% honest, and I said this before when I was on the FCS Fansation show, I'm not sold on Chattanooga being a playoff team because they have a quarterback who hasn't played a single down of college ball until this past weekend.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I saw the record last year, and I tend to believe that like the SoCon's kind of like, I guess if we're doing like FBS equivalents, kind of like the ACC, where like you have good teams. You have like good teams, like not really, I guess one great team being Samford, and you have like a lot of good teams that are like middling. So I mean, I did not know their quarterback had no action until this week. But the thing with North Alabama with me, I'm just not sure whether they're good or not. I'll have to see more. I mean, and I know it's a cop-out answer, but I mean, Mercer was impressive, but their performance in week 0, but Mercer just got beat 73-7, which, like you said about the FBS games, like I told myself, I'm like, I can't keep a team in the poll because I had Mercer, I think at 23 or 24. I'm like, I can't keep a low 20s team that loses by 66. Like, I don't care who you play, you just can't lose 73-7. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember if I'm checking my poll real quick because I think I actually took them out of my top 25, to be honest with you. But that was because, nope, they're still in there. They're in the low 20s. Or high 20, whatever you want to call it. They're at the bottom of the poll. I mean, I still think they have the potential to be a playoff team. I think the SoCon only is going to get 3, though. I think it's going to be Samford, Furple, and Mercer is going to sneak in somehow.
Ooh, okay.
I think they'll. I don't. I wouldn't be surprised if like Western Carolina comes in there and gives them a little hell too. But I just don't see Chattanooga being the team that's going to come in there and somehow just destroy that any sort of playoff bubbles for that conference. Some other games to note, just because it's been discussed all day. Shout out Morgan State for beating a bad Richmond team. Sorry, I know people had Richmond in their top 25 before the season started. I know Richmond had a great offense last year, but let's just stress it's last year. They lost a lot. They didn't reload. I've been saying this since the offseason. The man who ranks teams 1 to 27, Jamie Williams, has said this during the offseason, but Morgan State looks great. Their coach can win. He coached at Bowie State and Maryland, made them a national champion, competitor year after year. So, I'm not necessarily doubting Morgan State. I just don't see enough to put them in my top 25 yet. But they've got, they got an FBS game next week. I think it's Akron, maybe. But then they've got Towson, and then they've got Albany. Two great matches for them. And you know what? If they finish 2-2 through this stretch, I put them in my top 25 at that point. I think they would have earned enough to get there versus some of the other teams. But we're going against the UAC. Let me hit this comment real quick. No UNA fan thinks we're a powerhouse yet. I'm glad
Sleeping
you
giant.
Sleeping giant is the better term. Sleeping giant. So when we went through the game, some games to note. First of all, shout out UCA for hanging in with Oklahoma State. Yeah. UCA looked a hell of a lot better than they have in previous years. They look like they've shaken off that Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. They came in ready to play. Their running back combination is just so good with Powell and Hale. Did you get to check out any of the game, or did you check highlights afterwards, or?
So I did not. I went box score surfing at work for a few of these games. Mostly, I mean, just looking at matchups later on, but seeing the I guess how the game progressed, And I guess with the new clock rules, I feel like we'll see more types of games like this where, you know, they're closer than they indicate, because looking at the Morgan State game, I guess, to beat a dead horse, looking at that box score, like the offense wasn't particularly great, but they kept the ball. That's the thing. Like they kept the ball, they kept the clock moving. So with Central Arkansas, I feel like they're able to use that to their advantage, their ground game, their great running game to their advantage, and hang around Oklahoma State and, you know, make a few people some money who bet on the Bears to cover the spread.
Yeah, that was. I wish I had bet. That would seem like actually just easy money to me. And I think the spread, I don't know what the spread was, but they covered. So happy for them. My boys, SFA against Troy, coming out there. SFA, new defensive staff, got Coach Mike Mutz from Tulane. My problem with the Lumberjacks is that they're running the same offense this year without having the NFL caliber wide receiver in Xavier Gibson.
Right.
And that's a little bit of a concern. Like if you look at the offensive numbers, the offense didn't really produce great numbers against Troy. And Troy, again, obviously FBS team, Sun Belt champions, better than JMU, right? Jamie Williams, but Sun Belt champions. They just did not. But SFA just did not produce. They got down early, quick. I mean, they threw their first play from scrimmage was a pick six that they threw to Troy, and then but you know, they got a scoop and score in the second quarter. They got it pretty close, and then Troy pulled away. But I think they looked as a team a lot better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, Troy broke some big runs, but they kept it together. And I think they looked a lot better defensive wise than they were last year. Last year's defense would have given up 77 points to Troy. You know, this year they looked a lot tighter. So as a Lumberjack fan, I'm excited to see what they can do. As a partial fan, as a impartial fan, or impartial, whatever, saw that they're getting votes in people's top 25s. And guys, let's not do that. Let's not do that yet. Let's see who else is worth mentioning on the games. Abilene Christian, Keith Patterson's man got that team clicking. I mean, North Colorado or Northern Colorado, don't want to get those confused. Not a good team, not a good Big Sky team, always finishes in the cellar, but Abilene Christian just dominated that game. Wasn't even close. And then again, shout out Southern Utah. I don't think they're gonna be a playoff team, but they go 5-6. That's an improvement. That's year-over-year improvement. 6-5, they could be there. Like they are a good team. Coach Fitzgerald has them pretty well put together. So pretty. I mean, honestly, I was pretty impressed watching them. Let's go on to the games next week because there's some pretty good, fun ones. Not starting with Southern Utah at BYU. That's not going to be a fun one to watch, I don't think.
I think after the way BYU played last week against Sam Houston State in their first ever FBS game, I do think that Arizona State, I wouldn't say better, on the same level as BYU. I think just about. So I think that one has potential to kind of be like a late kind of runaway type game where BYU kind of distances themselves kind of late. So yeah. I wouldn't write off the Thunderbirds just yet because I think there's a lot of I wouldn't say bad blood, but kind of bragging rights on the line for Southern Utah.
I would say see what the spread is on that game, and if the spread's like BYU plus 31, plus 28, take the Thunderbirds. Like take that spread. I think they'll keep it within the spread. It's just not going to be a scalp. I'm almost wondering if we're even going to see an FCS over FBS scalp this year. Like the schedule just doesn't seem to match up, and the teams that you thought would do it aren't going to do it. So or didn't do it. You know,
Holy Cross this week. I got Holy Cross beating Boston College this week.
Oh, that is this week. Okay, the one that does it there because Incarnate Word failed. Maine failed, but came close. Maine came very close. Rhode Island got screwed on their game against Georgia. So let's see some scouts. Let's see. We got Eastern Kentucky going to play the University of Kentucky in Lexington. Interesting game because of what happened last year with Eastern Kentucky's coach and his heart attack. You know, ironic. I won't say ironic. To the University of Kentucky's hospital system. They saved his life. He's back coaching. I think it'll be probably a little bit of an emotional game for him. You know, I will say props to EKU for scheduling back-to-back FBS teams. You know, but that's also one of those things too. Where are you potentially scheduling yourself out of a at-large bid at that point?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Right. If you don't win the conference, you're already too. I mean, granted, FBS wins don't count for losses, but you know, if you stumble in midseason, if you stumble against like SFA or Austin P, or you lose to UCA, you don't have much extra to help you when it comes to that. Let's see. Austin P is off to Tennessee to get blown out. Yep. I'm sorry. Like Austin, I'm sorry. Austin P looked just so bad. There's no defense on that team. Their offense started putting stuff together, but their defense is just non-existent. I guess they lost too much. I was high on them. I thought they'd be a dark horse. Folks told me you're crazy, and that's fair. But damn, that was a bad. That was just a bad performance, and I just don't see it getting better, especially against the FBS team. Not even SIU. Nope. I mean, don't get me wrong. Fear the Sockalukies. The Sockalukies look good. Right. Let's just be honest. You have any thoughts on that one too, or no?
No, I think I would like to root for the Govs, but after last week getting blown up by Southern Illinois, like it's just not looking good for them. I'd like to see a spread for that one. Maybe that'll. I always like betting on those high spreads, because I'm like that's just too high. Like there's no way they're gonna get beat by that much. So hopefully we see like a high spread that people can bet on. So
okay, wait a minute before we get to the next thing. Brendan's got a question for you. It says, Omar, what's your shirt? Ariel, his wife, they're arguing about it.
So this is the yearly Polar Park game for Holy Cross. I went to the inaugural one, Holy Cross Colgate, the EBW Classic. I call it the Rose Bowl of the Bay State. From my childhood hometown, Worcester, but Polar Park it's a bucket list ballpark, and hopefully South Dakota State. I've heard rumors that South Dakota State's kind of scared to come down to Worcester, Massachusetts. So if I would love to see them play at Polar Park. That I've just heard rumors about that.
Ooh, Brendan, is that true? I guess I'll have to ask this weekend while I'm up there. It seems like you're afraid to play Holy Cross.
We want a return trip. Just one return trip.
I mean, if you guys could finish as a top 4 seed, well, you'd have to. Hopefully, hope they stumble. The Sockaluki fears no man, and that is absolutely correct. The Jacksonville State fan says, "Hey, it's okay, guys. USC solely FBS viable. Hey, listen, man, you play in the 3rd best FCS conference right now in this Conference USA. So I would just tone it down just a little bit, okay?" Jim Poppin, what's up, buddy? Glad to see you're here. All right, let's go to the rest of the games. Central Arkansas. I'm going to change the order of this one because I don't want to talk trash about COSA and say who Central Arkansas is playing this week. Central Arkansas is playing Texas College. Way to schedule up UCA. I'm not even
guys. Texas are playing the best.
They just got to get the money. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Abilene Christian and Prairie View is this week. That'll be a fun game, I think, to watch.
I think so. Yeah. I agree.
I mean, I think that'll be a tight spread. Abilene Christian's good. Prairie View, though, they to me could potentially win. I think they could actually be a dark horse to win the SWAC West. I don't know. Zach McKinnell's watching this will probably disagree with me, but everybody said it was Jackson State. Jackson State looked great against SC State, but I think it showed how bad SC State is.
Yes.
FAMU just rocked them. So it could be FAMU. I mean, probably will be FAMU, but I like this. I mean, Prairie View is not far from my house. I would like to see Prairie View kind of shock the world. We got more talk about Holy Cross real quick. Brendan says those are some strong words there. And then Ariel said, I don't need to hear this nonsense from a butter bar.
Hey, wow. I try to tone down the whole military now. I'm a writer who happens to be in the Army, guys. Let's tone that down. I just happen to be in the Army. I'm playing.
And here's the thing. I've met Ariel, and she's like the nicest person on the planet. So to hear her talk trash is pretty amusing. Let's see. Will Siler says, only playing Texas College because Arkansas Pine Bluff in a HBCU Classic.
Can you blame them?
Yeah, can you blame? I mean, honestly, do you blame them, Will? Like, I mean, I know that would have been a great battle over who's the 2nd or 3rd best tier team in Little Rock, area. But like, man, if they're playing in a Classic, they're gonna take that Classic game any day of the week. Military trash. Okay, Ariel. Okay, another good game. This might be my conference. Yeah, I'm going to come back to that one because I think that might be my conference game of the week. We got North Alabama traveling to Stephenville. playing Tarleton State. So it's funny. Brandon's comment came in perfect. Tarleton's having a purple out against the team who wears purple. They're not Aggies, but they're Aggie light, and they're just not very bright up there in Stephenville. Like, why wouldn't you do something else? Why wouldn't you do it against a team who doesn't wear purple? To be fair, half the damn conference wears purple at this point, but you have other games you could do. I don't know about this one, right? Because I picked hard against North Alabama last week. They beat Chatty. I think Tarleton's a bit. Well, I'm gonna say a bit. I think Tarleton's a lot better in Chattanooga. Look at how well Tarleton played against McNeese. McNeese, by the way, the 67th best team in Jamie Williams' 1 through 127 team rankings, and they're the third highest ranked team in the Southland Conference. So just remember, the Southland sucks. But I've got to take Tarleton State in that game. It's at home, just at home. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. I don't think it's gonna be anything like that. I think the Lions is a good game. I think it's gonna be like a Tarleton by 10 sort of game. But if they were playing in North Alabama in Florence, or if they're playing on a one-directional field in Huntsville, I might give it to the Lions. But the fact that they're playing in Stephenville, got to give it to the Texans. That'll be great in a 24,000 seat stadium where 9,000 people will show up and watch them play.
Wow.
But they're ready. They're ready for FBS. Montana, the team who could barely beat Butler last week, travels to play Utah Tech in St. George. I don't know if Montana's just that I don't say overrated either, because they're ranked 13th in a lot of polls, but like they look bad against the non-Scully D1 team. I've heard folks say that Butler has a great quarterback, but again, you should be blowing out Patriot League teams. Okay, you're not Cal Poly playing San Diego in the playoffs. Like you should win these games. Montana did not look good. I think Utah Tech can do it.
Oh man, gee. See, I just don't know about that, because Utah Tech got ran roughshod over last week against Montana State, and that's Montana's calling card, the run game. They ran for over 200. No matter how bad they played. So it's like, and I think for that one, honestly, too, I feel like the fans got to show out in St. George. I don't know if Utah Tech has great fan support out there in St. George, but I got to think that everyone and their mom has got to be out there for Montana coming into town. But then again, I don't think the home field advantage is great. Because if your team's just not good, it's not good. Like you look at New Hampshire Stonehill last week, like that was the biggest game in Stonehill's history, and they still got boat raced very badly by New Hampshire.
The thing about Utah Tech and shout out to the Blazers. I love their apparel on Walk On Sports. Shameless plug. Or Walk On Apparel. But anyway, the thing about them is that the past 2 seasons when they've been transitioning, they have played some of the toughest schedule. They've played South Dakota State. They've played Montana. They've played, they have played everybody to sharpen themselves. It's got to pay off at some point. Right. Maybe not against Montana at home, but I would love to see it, because I'd love to see Bobby Hawk having to coach for his job. Like I would just love to see that. And then honestly, what I think is the game of the week, some folks might disagree with me. You might call it a homer pick, but I think it's 2 really good teams going against each other. That's the Braves of Alcorn State going to Nacogdoches to play Stephen F. Austin at home. Last year, Alcorn State snatched defeat from the jaws of victory against SFA. SFA came back in the second half, got that dub in Lorman. I think the SFA defense is a bit tighter, like I said earlier, than they were last year against Alcorn State. I don't think Alcorn takes this one. No disrespect to Coach Fitz. But I'm going to take SFA, and I'm going to take SFA by 13 in this one, I think.
I think it's going to be a 1-score game. Just looking at – and maybe I'm overreacting just because of the fact that it's a FBS O-line and FBS running back. But, Kamani Vidal last week, and Jarvian Howard last year had a great year at running back for the Braves, over 1,200 yards. And he's a Syracuse transfer, and, not just the type of transfer that, didn't get playing time, was loaded up, was at the bottom of the depth chart. Like, he got quality playing time at Syracuse. This is a D1 back we're talking about. And then also, too, I know they got a little Wildcat quarterback action. They had I can't even read my own handwriting. I think it's like Tyler Macon, 4 carries, 83 yards. So I feel like Alcorn State is going to pull out some fun tricks this week. And also too, I mean, we'll see. I think we'll see if the Lumberjacks run defense was just a victim of one of the best backs in the group of 5, or if this is really a concern.
Yeah, I mean, they did make some great plays on defense, like the fumble, scoop, and score. But they did give us some big plays too. My biggest concern with the Lumberjacks, and where I think this might even, I don't think Alcorn's defense is that great, is Brian Maurer has got to get a rhythm going. He didn't do it. Jarrell Wembley's, they've got to move the ball. Like, again, they have to put some change into their offense, because, again, you don't have Xavier Gibson's speed, to take bubble screens and make 15-yard plays out of them. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. You don't have the X factor, and that's not a play on his name. That's really what it is. Like, you don't have that X factor anymore in Nacogdoches. So that to me is a concern. But if SFA can get their offense clicking against the Braves, and I think that's where the advantage comes through. But to your point, yeah, I'll be interested. I think I can't use FBS games as a true litmus test on if a defense has improved or not. So this will be, I think, a better litmus test to see if SFA's defense is better than what it was last year, or if we're seeing the same sort of problems that we saw. Let's see. Going through real quick. We got Ariel said that was military trash talk. Brandon, I did make fun of your stadium. Jim Poppin said only a few can talk that talk. The ones who put the right hand up and swore to defend our great nation. Not even going to disrespect and try to say it. So
that's a Marine thing, or is that? Yeah, I think that's a Marine thing.
That is a Marine thing. Let's see. Chad is here. Glad to see Omar again. When you getting up here, Omar? They did just say that there are limited tickets available to the Montana State.
Okay, I might have to put that on the list next year. I mean, next year or the year after that. I can't keep putting it off. But once you guys bring a Patriot League team down to Brookings, then I'll be there.
You had that last year. You could have gone. You could have been there.
Man, that's short notice. I'm not gonna buy a flight on like a couple weeks' notice to South, especially from like 2 places that are very hard to fly from. Like El Paso is not a travel hub at all, and then you're expecting to go to South Dakota. Like I do want to go. I just gotta check the schedule.
You could have gone American to Dallas and Dallas to Brookings. I'm doing the same route this weekend. You could have.
Oh, man.
Excuses. These are just some excuses I'm hearing out of you.
Right, well,
Chad said he's got a place for you.
I know you told me last time. I know. I'll plan it. I'll plan it out.
Yeah. Blaze said a Butler plays in the Pioneer. I might have said Patriot. I'm sorry. I was too busy focusing on Holy Cross stuff. But yeah, they're Pioneer, non-Scully. Jacksonville State says SFA is good at football. Probably about as good as your coaches at getting NCAA violations. So, Brandon Haddock says fly United. Unfortunately, I've flown United flight to El Paso. You don't want to go United to El Paso. So
I've flown it too. It's not bad. No, this is coming from a guy that flies Frontier willingly.
What the hell is wrong with you?
If it's a day trip, it's a day trip. I mean, getting there is 90% of the problem, in my opinion. So as long as that's solved, we're good to go.
90% of the problem is flying Frontier and getting there. Like, that's what it is. Like, you never know what you're gonna get. All my homies hate Rich Rod. Wow. All right. Let's see what we got. Okay. United is meh when the entire fleet isn't grounded. That's true. That is happens today. United breaks guitars. That is true also. But I saw the post of that guy who had the guitar break and he didn't put it in a travel safe case. That was kind of his own fault.
Oh man.
Like, I'm sorry. As someone who plays guitar, he should have put that into they make special cases for travel like that. He could have easily put that in there. He did not do that. Like, yeah, they could have taken better care of his stuff, but you took that risk also. Like, it sucks for you. So that's really the UAC for the rest of the week. Now, I know there's some big games this week. I guess the big one everybody's talking about, and we should touch on this, is Montana State, South Dakota State, 1 versus 3. Although I actually have Montana State ranked 2nd in my poll, because I just think they're a better team than North Dakota State. I just think, and I would be nice if North Dakota State found a quarterback who could throw, instead of basically having 2 running backs line up in the backfield. But I digress. Nice. what are your, so, we do have some South Dakota State folks watching here. Like, what are your thoughts on the Jackrabbits, and what are your thoughts on this game?
So I think this game it's like the rock fight to end all rock fights in terms of the FCS. Like I'm excited for this one, honestly. Just the way that South Dakota State runs the ball, especially like Isaiah. This is like for me, whenever I'm on my podcast with Jackson called Hardware, shameless plug, but we talk about the Heisman race, throwing the Walter Payton race. Like I am very pro running back, no matter what anyone says. Football is based on running backs. Like this is a game for Isaiah Davis to get his Walter Payton moment. So I'm rooting for that, not just because there's heavy South Dakota State viewership and I'm mugging for the camera, but I am rooting for him to have at least like 200 yards just have a great game. He's not sharing carries anymore. Really. I mean, so I think it'll be even game though. I think games like this are great for the FCS. I kind of wish this game was at Target, I guess this game. I kind of wish this game was at Target Field, to be honest with you, because I love neutral site games. I love special events. I love the glitz and glamour. In fact, this weekend I'll be going to the battle of the Piney Woods Light or Troop Edition.
It's Air Force and Sam, right? Is that what
Air Force and Sam. I mean, I've cozied up, unfortunately. I mean, well, maybe unfortunately for you, with some Sam Houston State fans. Build some friendships. But
is it the Cat Daddy tailgater guys?
No, not I don't know about the Cat Daddy people. More like sports of SHU. Excuse me.
He's a good guy.
He's great. He's amazing. And then
you can tell him tell him hi. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
When you're a rival with the team, you end up interacting with folks and making friends with folks that are rivals. And so there's some guys that at the games, whenever we play, I would start tailgating on the SFA side, then walk over to the Sam Houston side and run into them every year. So I'll know they'll be there. So if you see a big flag walk around that says like Cat Daddy Tailgaters, walk up there, say the Rev. Okay. And they'll take care of you.
All right, will do.
I never thought I'd say there's people from Sam were a good group of guys, but good group of guys right there. Yeah, no, I think you're right about Davis. I think this is his opportunity to just show what he can do. Opportunity to show that he should be a Walter Payton finalist. I'm interested to see what South Dakota State's defense does again against Tommy Touchdown, because Tommy Touchdown can run. When he throws, it's all jump balls, and that's I don't think you can do that against South Dakota State. I think you got to be concise with your passing. You got to get in there. You just can't throw a 50-50 ball and hope for the best.
Right.
And I think detriment to the team. Let's see. Jim Poppin says U.S. Army vet here. So shout out to the Army. Brendan says we're going to drown Rev and booze and Brookings Friday. It's only going to cost us like $40. That is that's good. Will's got a good question. I think you'll like this one. Where do the rest of the UAC schools fit into FBS realignment? Worried about teams trying to jump up if Pac-12 somehow stays together? Well, I don't think the Pac-12 is going to stay together, Will. But let's pretend like they do. Let's pretend like they poach the Mountain West schools. They somehow get Apple to help cover the fees, because Mountain West fees are just exorbitant to leave. What are your thoughts on what, I guess, the shift that you could see?
So honestly, I think at this point, like now with college football shifting to a super conference type model, I honestly think like the UAC school should be trying to get into Conference USA. But like now, and I know you made the Conference USA joke, like, but if so, my thing is, if the WAC A-Sun back then, but UAC plan now, if it was so good, if it was so airtight, then New Mexico State would not have joined CUSA. Same thing with Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State. So I feel like the UAC right now it's a Hail Mary. And I think everyone's play is to join, at the moment, Conference USA, or like if maybe even just, look at the American, even though I don't think the American would take any of the schools from the UAC. I think they would much rather look to the CAA, because I proposed Delaware, honestly. Delaware, traditional power. People say they're not ready for the jump, but they beat an American team last year, an American team that beat a team that almost went to the New Year's Six. So, I mean, like, it's not too much of a jump, I don't think.
Yeah, like I first of all, I think so with some of the UAC teams, there's going to be decisions guiding this that are not based upon football. There are some schools who make their decisions tied into basketball more than football, or into, budget when it comes to other things like Olympic sports. So I think that's one of the things that sometimes folks forget about when it comes to this conference realignment is, it's like with like North Dakota State. Why hasn't North Dakota State gotten a FBS invite? They have other sports, right?
Yep.
These other conferences, they don't want just football only members. They want full members. And so that's a detriment to North Dakota State for basketball, for all the other Olympic sports. And there's schools that apparently can afford to have their Olympic sports be in a cross nation conference by having their Olympic sports teams basically stay in Dallas the whole year. But that's I think it's the biggest detriment to schools like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, because they're just in such an island by themselves that they're not going to ever get moved up. In the UAC, I don't see anybody that's worth that can move up. I mean, there's some folks who have the budget. Eastern Kentucky has the budget. Stephen F. Austin has the budget. Tarleton now has the facilities because A&M has pumped all this money into it.
Yeah.
But what do they bring to a conference, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing the conference has to look at. What does Stephenville, Texas bring to Conference USA? Not much. I mean, you could say they're kind of in the Dallas market, but they're really not. They're an outlier. Right? What does Stephen F. Austin bring to Conference USA? The answer there is basketball, not football.
Yeah.
Eastern Kentucky wouldn't make sense, but Western Kentucky doesn't want to share a conference with them. So I think but to the original question, I don't know how the Pac-12 survives because I don't know who they pull. They can't pull Mountain West schools unless they're going to help them foot those bills. Because the amount of cash is just exorbitant that you have to pay to leave the Mountain West. So I personally think the Pac-12 or Pac-2 or whatever the shit you want to call it now, I think it's dead. Yeah. I think it's just done. I think you'll see somebody in like 15 or 20 years try to revamp it as a FCS conference. Shout out WAC. But I don't think it's going to survive. Just because of the other like sort of things that are going against it. Let's see. We got more comments about drinking, which I'm all for. Brandon Haddock says he's picking Montana State to win the Natty. You're a braver man than I am, my friend. Because I just don't see South Dakota State. There's only one stumble I see South Dakota State potentially having, and that's their Hobo Day game, because that's what always happens. But I don't think that's enough to stop them from winning the national championship. Like, I just think they're that polished of a team. Let's see. Chad says, hey, Omar, did you see the stiff arm that Davis threw last week?
No, unfortunately I did not. I did not re-up on my Midco Sports Plus subscription. I'm just kidding. But no, I didn't. I did not. Thursday night was kind of busy for me. I mean, honestly, like the whole weekend is just busy, just like with my co-host Jackson's wedding and everything. So unfortunately, I did not. But I'm gonna look that up now because Isaiah Davis is a violent runner. Like, I feel like that term gets overused sometimes, but he is just a truly violent runner.
Yeah, like I would hate to have to go up against him in any way, shape, or form. I'd hate to, just see him running just like down the sidewalk, like going out to take out the trash or something, see him run down the sidewalk. I'd be like, oh shit, dude, that's a big dude. A very violent runner. Let's see. Big Jack says JSU's 2-0, SFA lost to Troy. Okay. You barely beat UTEP and almost threw, and I mean, UTEP literally threw that game away, and then you beat East Tennessee. Good job. Like I said, third best FCS conference. It's Conference USA. Chambers being back is bigger than the field conditions. I would agree with that too. The fact that they do have Chambers back for Montana State, that's a huge add to their offense. That's a dimension that they did not have in the semifinals. I still don't think it's enough. I think South Dakota State has just they didn't lose enough for it to be a concern. You know what I mean? Like they returned too much. Although Adam Bach is supposed this, in a boot, and that's a loss on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh yeah,
but it doesn't stop me from making beer puns. Grant says ref talks smack of the USA, but deep down knows they jump in a heartbeat. If they would jump in a heartbeat, why haven't they jumped yet? There are conversations about it. Just saying. Reason why they didn't go. Will Bill Walton still call the Pac-12 the premier conference? Bill Walton's so high that I'm sure he will call them whatever they want to. Like whatever they want to be called, I'm sure he'll do it for you. Here's some. See, look, Conference USA smack. This is what I like on here. Sources tell me CUSA will get a couple FCS teams, probably more than a couple. I mean, CUSA Isn't that good? Like FIU.
Yeah, that's the easy. And I'm trying to think of someone else other than FIU, because FIU gets a lot of that hate, a lot of that would get beat down. But I'm trying to think of someone else though, like someone else that like you can throw under the bus.
Yeah, I mean,
Louisiana Tech, maybe?
Louisiana Tech has looked like shit, and that's my mother's alma mater. Like, sorry, mom, if you ever watch this, but Louisiana Tech has looked awful. And honestly, I mean, Sam Houston, I'm not going to hate on them too much. I mean, they did play BYU. They lost 14-0. Their defense looked great, but their offense, Keegan Shoemaker is not your quarterback. He was good enough to squeak by at the FCS level. He is not an FBS caliber quarterback. That's going to be the downfall to Sam Houston football this season. Is Shoemaker. So I'm not at all trying to hate Sam. Honestly, I'm really not. But like, there's no offense there. Let's see. Jim Poffin says another beer. Oh, here you go. The cross upsetting DC this week. There you go. There you go.
I mean, this was a game. Before I like gallivant about history, just look at the history of Holy Cross Boston College. Like, this was the game in the Northeast. I'm just glad it's happening. For once every 5 years or so.
I'm sure it pisses off a bunch of guys named Sully whenever these two teams play.
Oh gosh.
Let's see. But the Pac-12 basically out of business at this point. Both Oregon State and Washington State probably have no choice but to move to the Mountain West Conference. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, I think that's what happens. I think they just go to Mountain West.
I think so too. Because being the Mountain West isn't a bad life in terms of media. They get a bunch of games on network. Well, not a bunch, but a few games on network TV. Like, if you're a team like Washington State or Oregon State, that's just about what you're getting like right now, but they just get less money. The exposure is probably about the same. Well, not the same, but not too much of a drop off, I should say.
To be fair, I don't think I can think last time I've watched Washington or Oregon and actually sat down and watched one of their games. Like, I'm being honest, right? Like,
okay.
Like, I don't stay up late. I'm old. But I think a couple here. You're asking about who to dunk on in Conference USA.
Yeah. NMSU. There's not really excusing that one. I say that because I live in El Paso and I went to their little bowl parade for the Quick Lane Bowl. So it's just funny how all these insults are kind of hitting. But you can't really defend that one actually. So you're right.
Here's why I dunk on that. They played two FCS schools because of a waiver to get to that game. They played Valpo. That's who they played.
That was historic though. I was rushing from work to get a ticket because I'm like, I don't know how amped the fan base was. They weren't amped, but I'm like people don't realize like what we're witnessing. A Pioneer Football League team playing an FBS school, and it was every bit as bad as you would guess. Like, yeah. Diego Pavia, I think his stat line, I think I talked about it on the podcast before week 0 on my podcast. Like, he went like 9 for 14 for like 320 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then I remember sitting there because I sat with the Valpo fans, just to get the pulse of this once in a lifetime event for them. And I was just rooting so hard for them to score a touchdown at the end. And then it was so bad that it was like 4th and goal from the 20 or not even the 20. I think 4th and goal from like the 10 or 15. I think it was inside 20. And New Mexico put 4 safeties on the goal line just so Valpo wouldn't score a touchdown. And Valpo just like they didn't like they couldn't break a 15-yard prevent defense. Like, it was just bad.
First of all, I'm shocked that Valpo had fans there. I think secondly, I'm shocked that Valpo has fans, but that's just that is a once in a lifetime sort of game for them because they're not going to ever get that. There was money involved. That's good for them. I don't know if you want to do this real quick. UAC power rankings off the top of your head. Rev picks the odds. Omar gets the evens. So I'll go first, right? Okay. I still think even with the loss, still UCA is number 1.
Yeah,
I think they're the most put together team.
Yeah, I would agree. Number 2, I'm going to go EKU because a loss to Cincinnati, I don't think that indicates too much of, who they are. They're already kind of like I'd say a mediocre playoff team. I still think they're in the top echelon of the league.
Yep. I think 3, I'm going to put in, I can't decide if I want to put in, I'm going to put in Abilene Christian right now. I think Patterson has them going. They looked great against Northern Colorado. I could put in some teams that lost to FBS schools, but honestly, Patterson knows how to win. And that's a concern if you're any other UAC team because he he was great when he was at Tech, and he's already turned Abilene Christian around in time he's been there. So I'm going to give Abilene Christian third right now.
Okay, then I'm gonna go SFA. I lean more towards the WAC teams in this league than the ASUN teams. I just think that the ASUN half the league's kind of just generally weaker, save for EKU and UCA. So I'm gonna go SFA, just right below ACU.
Yeah, 5. This is where it's gonna get kind of a little muddy. I'm gonna give 5 to Tarleton. I think there's 5, 6, 7. You could probably flip flop around some, but I think Tarleton's 5th.
I'm going to go UNA at 6, just right behind them, honestly. Maybe that'll change this weekend.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. I think you could easily flip-flop those two, and it's not really an offensive thing. Like, I mean, 5th, 6th, there's not much difference there. Even 7th, Southern Utah, you're right there. Southern Utah, second half looked great against Arizona State, so I'm going to put Southern Utah at 7.
I'm going to go Utah Tech. After that, they still scored a good amount of points against Montana State, and there's always room for them to move up this week, like you say, if they beat Montana.
Yeah, and that puts Austin P 9th, and I know some folks are going to go, what the hell? But, dude, Austin P looked so bad against SIU. Like, that was just an absolutely destructive game. Nick Baker looked like he was just playing with as a high school kid playing against like 6th graders in a schoolyard. Like, he just went off, and maybe that's a testament to the fact that the only reason the Sock Lukis finished under 500 last year was look to the teams they lost to. They lost to playoff team. They probably, had they played in any other conference, would have had an 8-3, 9-2 record and been in the postseason. It's just because they play in the Missouri Valley that they got that they got left out. It was a pretty epic collapse though. So all right. So yeah, I mean, and it's kind of hard, honestly, to on week 1, it's kind of hard to rank them because you're only looking at, with the exception of UNA, one piece of evidence here. I'm sure these will flip flop, but that's a good test. I think we all agree though, UCA is still primed to win this conference, and I think they showed it last week. Will says lots of parity. Absolutely.
Yep.
Probably, I think this conference has the most parity in FCS. I will defend that. Let's see. Chad says Rev losing a shirt sometime this weekend. Minus 200 odds. We'll see. It has happened at the past 2 natties I've been at. The first time I had a few. The second time I actually had not had any, and I did it just because of what happened the first time. So let me tell you, it was kind of hard to go shirtless in a rabbit suit, but I got it done because modern problems require modern solutions. Brandon Haddock says UTRGV should be 9. And man, I'm not gonna lie to you, once UTRGV gets going, that's a great recruiting area that they have. And the Valley is just so full of talent, and folks down there, like when folks leave the Valley, they go back to the Valley. They don't want to leave the Valley. It is, if you haven't been down to the Rio Grande Valley, I suggest going sometime. And it's beautiful when you get down there. So they got a great coach in Travis Bush, man. They're recruiting like crazy. They're going after it. Like, I think they'll be a force to reckon with pretty early when they get into their existence. Will says, I'll pull out that picture of shirtless. That's okay. I can do that myself if I wanted to. And Will, you're not on the show anymore, my guy. If you want to come onto the show and you want to put that shirt up or that photo up, I will let you do it. But I know you're busy working on your med school stuff and making the world a better place. All right, so we've reached about 50 minutes. I think I appreciate you guys for the comments. I guess Omar, time for a shameless plug. Let people know where to find you.
I appreciate it. You can find me just anywhere. I'm willing to collab with anyone and talk any football with anyone. It's a lot better than than my day job. I'm not saying that it's Army and stuff. It's just like I would love to be paid to talk about football, as most of us would be. But you can find me. Most of my writing right now is at Red Shirt Sports. It's a newer site. Shout out to our web designer James Singleton. That man's a magician. That man puts in so much work to that site. And then as well, you can find my podcast, The Hardware Pod. My co-host Jackson Danner and I talk about college football awards. You can find us. We throw in some Walter Payton, some Buck Buchanan talk later on in the season. You can find that on YouTube at Hardware Pod. But you can just find me anywhere. In the spring, I talk about indoor football. It's really a surprise I've been able to hold up a steady relationship, with how much my mind wanders, how much time I spend on this. But yeah, those are the places you can find me.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. This is awesome.
Thank you.
South Dakota State friends that are watching this, looking forward to seeing you guys. And Brookings, looking forward to see one hell of a game in person between Montana State and South Dakota State. Next week, I will be traveling for work, so I'm not sure when I will be coming on and recording this. It may be later on in the week. You'll just see a notification. Sorry, you don't have your I'm not in your TV guide as a regularly set program, but I got to pay the bills too. And unfortunately, football doesn't pay those bills. Yep. So, but if you need me, I'll be in Phoenix, Arizona most of the week. So, all right. So Jim Poppins says it's time. He says, go big, go blue, go Jacks. And reminder for those of you going to the game in Brookings, it is a blackout weekend. So I don't understand. I guess I get why they do it in South Dakota, because they don't own black coats, but it's hot and you're wearing black. I think you could just think about that. You could do that a little differently. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Once again, Omar, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great rest of your week and have a great weekend.